Welcome everyone to the Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Kendra Grams, pastor at First Presbyterian Church here in Hudson, and glad to be with you to bring us another installment of our ongoing series of clergy conversations. Today, I'm privileged to be able to welcome a new-ish pastor to our community, the Reverend Clare Gromoll, who is at People's Congregational Church in Bayport, Minnesota, just across the river from us here in Hudson. But their congregation extends across the river, as do many of ours. So it's wonderful to welcome you, Clare, and be able to introduce you more widely to our community. So let's start with you as a pastor. We always, pastors often get set aside, but they're people too. So who is Clare the person?
Well, I think of myself as bivocational, as a mother as well. And so I have an 8-year-old child and a 5-year-old child, 2 sons. And we live in Shoreview, actually, in Shoreview, Minnesota, on the northeast side of the Twin Cities.
And are you from Minnesota, Wisconsin originally, or where do you call your roots?
Yes, well, my roots come from Eagle River, Wisconsin, so about 4.5 hours from here in the north central border with the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Great.
Yeah.
And outside of mom and church worlds, what are some other interests and things to know about you?
Well, I think I really appreciate live independent music. So when I have a chance to go to a listening room, folk or Americana music, that's a passion for me. And I also really enjoy exercise, especially jogging and walking and working out at the YMCA. So today I'll be at the Hudson one. Usually I use the Shoreview one.
It's a good why, so that's great. Well, thinking about the church then, we know that the Christian family tree is very large and very varied. So I wonder if you could tell us about your tradition and how it is that you came to find a home in that tradition, that little branch of the Christian family tree.
Sure. So I'm ordained in the United Church of Christ, and that denomination came about in the 1950s as a merger between first and second generation German immigrants, which were called the Evangelical and Reformed Church at that time, and the Congregational Christian churches, the majority of those churches, which came as Puritans and Separatists from England centuries ago. They found common ground, that denomination, and it's too uncommon for us, actually, in Christian circles to unite and find common ground and solidarity in forming a new branch of the church. So it was a great experiment, the United Church of Christ. And I found my way there because of a slogan that was used in rebranding the denomination in the 1990s and the aughts, which was never place a period where God has placed a comma. God is still speaking. And so the idea of valuing questions and explorations of faith, at least as much as holding convictions in common with others, was very compelling to me. I had been raised in the Wisconsin Synod Lutheran denomination, which in part draws its strength from a solidarity around very particular ideas about scripture and about faith. And so that was not a right fit for me, and I was so eager to, as a young adult, be able to find the right denomination. And once I found my pocket of the Christian tradition, I then was more fully open to the call to ministry, I think.
Great. Well, so let's talk about that call to ministry, and specifically your call to People's Congregational in Bayport. How did you enter into the call in ministry, and then what brought you to Bayport specifically?
Sure. So as I studied at Beloit College in southern Wisconsin, I studied comparative literature and a minor in religious studies. And I was able to take the 3.5-year route to get through college, and then went into outdoor ministry. And I moved down to Texas to be in camp and retreat ministry year-round. And did that for a few years. And while I was living in a small town between Austin and Houston, Texas, I had the opportunity to become a bilingual public elementary school teacher because I am bilingual from having been an exchange student in the Dominican Republic as a teenager. And so I continued that path in teaching, moving me back to Wisconsin, which is where I discovered the United Church of Christ, and also discovered, with much due respect and appreciation to all people who work in the field of education, that I did not have the right skill set to be a classroom teacher. And so after several years in teaching, I was hoping the right path for me would come along. And indeed, parish ministry, that vocation for local church leadership, feels like a very good fit for me. I enjoy the variety of tasks. I really enjoy that one moment I may be cogitating on a sermon, and the next moment I may be organizing for a meeting, and the next moment I may be calling a plumber or checking the mail. There are so many tasks, and surely getting to visit with people. There are so many tasks that I enjoy about being a pastor in a local church context. And I wanted to add that People's Congregational Church in Bayport is a wonderful small church that is rooted in the National Association of Congregational Christian Churches. And that is a group of congregational churches that didn't choose to join the United Church of Christ when it came to be in the 1950s. They decided they would each decide on their own in time if they would want to join with the new body. And this church didn't. It stayed traditionally Congregationalist, and yet just in this current year, we have undergone a rigorous process to add an affiliation with the United Church of Christ so that we have our historic Congregationalist affiliation and moving into covenant with the United Church of Christ as well. And I was ready for a new challenge. That's how I arrived to People's Church. I have been an associate pastor in a role that focused on the faith-forming ministries with children, youth, adults, and intergenerationally at St. Paul's United Church of Christ in St. Paul. And I realized that I was ready to step into a lead or solo pastor position. So I was delighted that this opportunity came up.
Great. Well, so it sounds like really great and interesting things are happening at People's Congregational. You said added the official affiliation to the United Church of Christ. What specifically will that make possible, or what other things are you really excited for as you continue to live into your shared ministry there?
Well, thanks for that question. So the added affiliation with the United Church of Christ is delightful because it is a more populous group. So there are more local churches around the western edge of Wisconsin or in the greater Twin Cities area with whom we can connect and share resources and be mutually informed. And we can continue our ties with the smaller group of historically Congregationalist churches. It feels that we are doing many wonderful experiments at People's Church, and that is the way I go about ministry, is to encourage experiments and see how they go, see if they bring new life or not. And one thing that we did this year was have our first ever May Festival at People's Park, which is a beautiful 10-acre prairie restoration and parkland that we own, that we call part of our home. It is actually a mile from our church. It's near it, but it adjoins to a public park and ball field there in Bayport. It's wonderful because we have a prairie restoration, a labyrinth, a community garden, and an outdoor chapel where we hold our services week in and week out for 4 or 5 warm months of the year. So as we emerge from COVID, we're thinking about ways of expanding physical access and definition within our park while also living gently with it as the living organism that the park is as well. So there are hopefully improvements coming down the way for that. And we are so excited right now to be rebooting our annual Harvest Fest that draws neighbors from very close by and further afield after a 3-year hiatus with COVID. So we continue to welcome visitors and be one option, one of the progressive Christian voices in the St. Croix Valley.
Great. Yeah. So you said you're rebooting a Harvest Festival. I assume that's happening soon?
Yes, November 19th.
Okay.
And if we are adding to that festival each year, this year our big focus is to have about 20 artisan exhibitors from outside the crafters within our own congregation. And we have 7 musical acts throughout the day of varying genres, gentle acoustic music, but various instrumentation and vocalists. So we're really focused on the wonderful soups that are always there, and the wreaths and other auction and raffle, all those fun activities, and we're augmenting the additional artistry that's there on the 19th of November.
Okay, and that's at the park, it sounds like?
No, that one's actually at the church building.
Okay.
It's in May when it's a bit warmer that we're able to do the outdoor festival at our park, yeah.
Understandable. So November 19th at People's Congregational right there in Bayport, if people are interested. Great. Well, maybe let's then step back a little bit and just end with a big picture dream, right? If you had a big picture dream for the church, as in the big church, us all coming together, all Christians coming together about one thing, what would be your big dream for the church?
Wow. Well,
or one of them.
Sure. So, I am more of a Unitarian Christian than a Trinitarian Christian. I love the metaphor of Trinity. It's beautiful and interactive, and yet I feel the Spirit of God is present in all the intersections of us, and that's how I think we experience the regenerative work of salvation over and over again, is by connecting and daring to be mutually informed by one another's experiences of faith and experiences of this human journey. So I think in order to be relevant within all the beautiful faith groups that there are in this human community, I think Christians would do well to be radically open to one another as well as beyond ourselves, but being open to informing one another with the different strengths and gifts that our different threads of the Christian family bring.
It sounds like that's been vital to your faith journey, is being open. Is there maybe one example of how openness to another Christian journey or another faith journey of any kind has been formative for you?
You know, I think it's interesting to keep both the past and the future in mind when living radically in the present. And so I think an important aspect of my faith journey is to remember and to always bend toward appreciation. So for instance, I was raised in a church and school of a tradition I'm not part of anymore. And I can have many spiritual and intellectual disagreements with another tradition, but I can recognize and appreciate and really honor the nurture that was present there as well, and be informed and continue to be informed by people that might be of that tradition of my roots, although not of my current branches. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot to grow strong, and so honoring all of that from the ground up is a great testament of faith. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so it's great to talk with you, Claire. It's great to be with you, our viewers. We hope that you enjoyed this, and certainly we'll keep in mind People's Congregational Church on November 19th in particular for their Harvest Festival upcoming. We look forward to having you again for our next clergy conversation, and until then, we hope that you all will be at peace and be well.